We are going to now be joined by Jim Howe. He's the Green Party candidate for the U.S. House District number 11. Jim, you're on the program. Welcome.
I'll be joined by Jim. Okay, thank you.
Jim, okay, if I could ask you to turn down your computer or your TV. Okay. Where is District number 11?
District 11 is in West Texas. It runs from Pecos through Odessa, where I live, Midland, where I work. Big Spring is cut out of it through the gerrymandering, San Angelo, Brownsville, and it runs to the suburbs of Austin.
Okay, so it's sort of
300 miles across.
It's out in West Texas. Jim, why did you decide to run?
I believe that we don't have enough choice, and my experience with petitioning is that the people of Texas agree. I would like to end the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and Pakistan and be on the floor of the U.S. House to prevent a war with Iran. I'd like to divert $70 billion, 70% of our military spending, to our domestic economy to create the 20 million jobs we need for full employment. I'd like to see fair elections where all parties have an equal chance to discuss their views. As it stands now, the Democrats and the Republicans pretty much have a monopoly, and they make the realm of political discussion extremely narrow. I would say that the Republicans have two constituent groups, the giant corporations and the super rich being one of them, and the second one being small business, medium-sized business, and people that aspire to become entrepreneurs and business people. The Democrats, on the other hand, also have two component groups that make up their constituency. Again, the giant corporations and the super rich is one, and then unions, working people, and ethnic minorities as their other supporters. Unfortunately, the giant corporations and the super rich trump on every issue. So when there's an issue that comes up that is a benefit to working people, the Democrats go with their economic constituency, as do the Republicans, and NAFTA is a perfect example of that in both regards. NAFTA is not good for small business. NAFTA is not good for American workers. But under the Clinton administration, it was passed, with Republican support and a sizable number of Democrats, and with President Clinton signing it.
And unfortunately, we see that kind of behavior even today with the Democratic Party. They're unreliable whenever it comes to the issues and concerns of their base and of really the people of America. Jim, I want to ask you about the number one issue right now across the nation, which is the economy. What do you think that the Congress should do about the economy?
We should repeal or change NAFTA and the other international treaties that we have to allow taxes on imports proportional to the pay of workers in the countries where those products are produced. So if you have cheap labor in a country like Pakistan or India or China, you tax that product to put it on an equal playing field with the products produced in the United States. You do the same thing with environmental laws. If you have a country that has lax or non-existent environmental laws, you tax those products in proportion to that, so we're on an equal playing field. That alone is not going to do it, but the economy as it is naturally pushes money into the hands of the very rich and the corporations because they get to set the prices on a daily basis, whereas workers negotiate their wages very infrequently, and they're stuck with those wages for a very long time. You go to the store one day and you see milk is $2.75. You go back 3 days later, it's $3. Whereas your wages, you're negotiating and they're there for years.
And they're sticky. What is your feeling about the stimulus? Do you think that the government needs to do more to help stimulate the economy?
I definitely do. But the stimulus is a perfect example of the way the Democrats and the Republicans operate. And remember, it was passed under Bush with overwhelming Republican opposition and overwhelming Democratic support. Not that the Republicans wouldn't have voted for it if they needed to, but it was more politically advantageous for them to be against it. They were for it. They just didn't want to vote for it, so they can blame it on the Democrats. But what that did was it gave over $1 trillion to the banks, Wall Street companies, and insurance companies. That money was then used to gobble up smaller, large corporations and consolidate the industry, and not to create jobs. We're going in a similar direction now with what they're calling economic easing, I think they're calling it. What we're doing is we're creating very low interest rates in the United States, which frees up money for the big corporations to buy up assets in other countries,
right? Not
to create jobs here in the United States. We're basically doubling down on what we did with the mortgage crisis, and that is going to lead to an even bigger crisis a few years down the road if we continue down that road.
So what I hear you saying is we need to be smart about the stimulus.
We need to put money in the hands of working people. Mm-hmm. What I would recommend doing is, again, going back to $700 billion in spending on military. I would take that $700 billion. That is almost exactly what we need to create 20 million jobs at $30,000 each for teachers, for infrastructure, transportation, water systems, and especially for green jobs. I would put a lot of that money in the hands of homeowners and small businesses so they can insulate and put solar and wind on their roofs, and that money would be spent, generate the 20 million jobs, and give us full employment.
I mean, we really are coming to a guns or butter sort of decision. We're laying teachers off, and we're spending almost $1 trillion on the military. Something needs to be done about that.
We're spending billions on prisons as well.
Right.
And we have 460,000 in prison, 2.1 million in prison, more than any other country, including China, which is 3 times our population size, more than 3 times our population size. The Democrats and the Republicans aren't going to do this, though, because having full employment would create a situation where wages would be rising, and the giant corporations are dead set against that. And that's why we need an alternative. To go back to elections, the Democrats are crying about a terrible decision made by the Supreme Court.
You're talking about Citizens United?
United decision.
Yeah.
The Democrats could have fixed that the day after it happened. Either 1, by executive order signed by Obama, 2, by a regulation by the FCC, or 3, by a vote in the majority-controlled House and Senate, to make public financing of campaigns the law, and you wouldn't even actually have to give any money. The citizens of the United States own the airwaves. We license them to the big corporations that run our radio and TV stations. All we need is an executive order or a regulation that says you're required to give back 5% of your time, or I don't care about this percentage, but some percentage of your time, so every political race will have an opportunity to hear all sides. People will be able to, you wouldn't need to have all this money. You don't have to stop people from spending it, but people would have a fair chance of hearing the views of all the parties.
And that would almost immediately clean up our election system.